Hello, Facebook friends and family. What's up? Happy Monday. Hope you are all having an awesome day. Um, I actually made sure I put that I do not have the copyrights to this book, and I figured I would do the StreamYard. And if you are coming in to watch, please put live or replay. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And are you getting ready to find a book to read? Get out of your comfort zone. I see somebody's watching. Okay. So I'm starting where I and Angela left off. So this is how it's going to be, right? Mike said. Yeah, this is how it's going to be. Come on, boy. Dad was 6'4", 265 pounds. Mike was 5'10", 180. Oh, shit, man. Dad now crouched, stepped in with a right hook across Mike's jaw. Mike went down. Dad stalked toward him. On the ground, gathering himself, Mike saw a 5', 2x4 lying on the ground next to him. Just as Dad came in for another blow, Mike grabbed the 2x4 and baseball bat, swung it across the right side of Dad's head. Dad stumbled back, sincerely, dazed, but still on his feet. Now stop it, Dad. I don't want to fight you, and I ain't stealing Don Knowles' pipe tonight. Dad, bleeding from his ear, turned and leveled Mike with another right hook. Like hell you're not, boy, he said as he prowled in on his son on the ground. Oh boy, this is good. With the 2x4 out of distance and Dad bearing down on him again, Mike grabbed a handful of sandy gravel from the ground and slung it across Dad's face, blinding him. Man, that had to hurt. Dad stumbled back, struggling to get his bearings. That's enough, boy. Pop, it's over. But it wasn't. Unable to see, Dad lunged toward Mike's voice. Mike easily sidestepped him. That's enough, Dad. Dad, now I'm a blind, groveling bear with bleeding ears, came at Mike again. Where are you, boy? What's my son who won't roll Don Knowles' pipe with his old man? Mike picked up the 5', 2x4 and held it in at the ready. Dad, I'm telling you, it's over. If you come at me again, I'm going to knock you out with this 2x4. And I'm prepared to do it. Dad heard him clearly, steadied himself, then said, give it your best shot, boy, as he blistered Mike. Whoop. Man, that had to hurt. The 2x4 went across Dad's head. Out cold, Dad laid there in the heap on the ground. Damn it, Dad, Mike said in shock, wondering if he'd kill him. Mike, crying now, knelt down over Dad and yelled, damn it, Dad. I told you not to come at me again. I warned you. Dad laid there, unmoving. For 4.5 minutes, Mike knelt over his fallen Pop, weeping. I didn't want to do it, Dad, but you made me. Dad then slowly got to his feet. I am sorry, Dad. I didn't mean it. Mike shouted, I'm sorry. My dad stood straight and wiped and gravelled from his eyes. Mike, crying tears of shock and fear, readied himself for the risk of another round. Dad's eyes, now clear, focused on the young man who had just knocked him out cold, his first son. The fight wasn't over. Tears ran down my dad's face as well. But there were tears of pride and joy. Dad stepped toward Mike with open arms and took him into a loving bear hug, declaring into Mike's ear, that's my boy, son. That's my boy. From that day on, Mike an equal to Dad, and Dad treated him as such. Dad never challenged Mike again, physically, morally, or philosophically, they were best of friends. You see, rites of passage were a big deal to my dad, and if you were a man enough to do it or to take it, then you had to prove it. And Mike just did. To lose the power of confrontation is to lose the power of unity. That's a little thing that this book says on the thing. Second in line to the privilege of my dad's methods of turning his boys into men was Pat. Over the past 40 years, while Rooster has been chasing a career in the oil business in West Texas, I've been chasing one in Hollywood. Wow. Pat has been the fiercely loyal, hardiest of the family, and one who always stayed closest to Mom growing up. He looked after me, took up for me, let me hang out with his friends, introduced me to rock and roll, taught me how to golf, how to drive, how to ask a girl out on a date. Boy, that was fun. And bought me my first beer. Pat was my hero. His was Evel Knievel. Pat's night with Dad came on a Friday in the early spring of 1969, 8 months before I was magically born. Dad was out of Fred Smither's hunting camp with some friends a couple hours drive from home. Their night's entertainment had segued into who could piss over whose head and highest. Each man, from shortest to tallest, would stand on the barn wall, put a mark over his head, and the rest of them would see if they could flat foot piss over the mark. Dad won when he was the only man who could piss 6 feet 4 inches high and marked his territory, but over his head, the prize bragging rights. But Dad wasn't the tallest man in the barn that night. At 6 foot 7 inches tall, Fred Smither was. And even though Dad had already won the contest, he had to see if he could piss over Fred's head. Fred stood up and marked the wall. Come on, man. Big Jim, you do it. His buddies cheered. Pop chugged another beer, leaned back, and let it fly. Nope, 6'4" was a high as he could piss. I knew it. Knew you couldn't piss over my head, Big Jim. Hell no, body can do that. Fred Smither declared, to which Dad quickly replied, my boy can do it. Shit, Jim, ain't no way your boy or any else can piss over my head, Fred sneered. Like hell he can't. You wanna bet? You wanna bet me? Dad eyed a used Honda XR80 dirt bike leaning against a hay bale in the corner of the barn. You see, Pat had been asking for a dirt bike for Christmas all year long, but Dad knew he couldn't afford to buy one, used or not. I'll bet you that little dirt bike over there, my boy, can piss over your head, Fred. The gang all cracked up at the proposition. Fred looked at the dirt bike, then back to Dad and said, deal. And if you don't, you owe me $200. I just ain't got $200 to lose, Fred. But if my boy can't piss over your head, then you can keep my truck, Dad said. Deal, Fred replied. Deal? I'll be back with my boy by sunrise. Don't you all go to bed on me now. And with that, Dad hopped into his beat-up pickup truck and drove 112 miles to the house in Olved to pick up Pat. Wake up, my little buddy. Wake up, Dad said as he quickly shook Pat from his slumber. Put a coat and some shoes on. We're going somewheres. 8-year-old Pat got out of bed, put on a pair of his tennis shoes and a coat over his tighty whities, then headed for the bathroom. No, son. I need you to hold it, Dad said as he rushed Pat out the door. Dad drove Pat 120 miles back to Fred Smither's hunting camping ground and made him drink 2 beers on the way. Oh my God, what a dad. When they finally got to the camp at 4:40 in the morning, Pat's bladder was full of potential. Dad, I really gotta go bad. I know. Just hold it for a few minutes. Dad and Pat in the tennis shoes, coat, and tidy whities walked into the barn. The boys had quite down, but we're still awake. Fred Smither, too. Boys, this is much on Pat, and he's about to piss over Fred's head. They all broke out of laughter again. Game on, I guess. Fred sauntered over to the pissing wall, stood up tall, and chalked a fresh line above his head, all 6'7" of his weight or height. What's going on, Daddy? Pat asked. You see that mark on the wall? Mr. Fred just left. Yes, sir. Think you can piss over it? Oh, hell yeah, Pat replied, then dropped his tidy whities below his knees, put both hands on his pucker, aimed it at the mark, and let it fly. Platt cleared Fred Smither's 6'7" mark by 2 feet. That's my boy. I told y'all my boy could piss over your Fred's head. Dad hustled over to the corner of the barn, grabbed his Honda XR80 and rolled it over to Pat. Merry Christmas, my son. Then they loaded it in the back of Dad's truck, hopped in, and drove 112 miles back home just in time for breakfast. And thank you for tuning in. I'm not going to read too much. This chapter is pretty long, so it'll take me a while. But I figured I would read a couple chapters. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Eloise Osborn, coming from Marathon, New York. I'm in my car, and I wanted to read this book because I do enjoy it. And there's ways that you can read a book. You just got to kind of like use your own words and some things and phrases in the book. So that's what I'm doing. And I do it because I don't have the rights to the book. And as you know, when you publish something on Facebook or any other platform, you do have to have rights. So, but I hope you have an awesome day. Love you all. God bless you. Namaste. Have a good evening, good night, good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in. And if you like this, please subscribe and share and come back again. I please and thank you. Have a good evening. Toodaloo.